Dr. E.B., CEO of My Dr. E.B. LLC, is a multi-award-winning, board-certified radiation oncologist, consultant, international speaker, best-selling author, featured on NBC, ABC, Fox and Affiliates, and Hollywood Live. She has also led the establishment of radiation oncology centers nationally and internationally, consistently endeavoring to educate, edify, enlighten, and transform others through her practice. Dr. E.B. is renowned in her field for her innate understanding of cancer and empathy towards her patients. So please welcome your host of REVOXYLIFE, Dr. E.B.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to, you know it, REVOXYLIFE with me, Dr. E.B. on Bold Brave TV. Again, thank you for sharing this wonderful Saturday afternoon with us, or morning or night, wherever you are in the world. Today, we have a very exciting guest for so many reasons, and you will hear all about her accolades as I read her bio. But she is not only great and as a radiation oncologist, but she's also a mentor and a friend. So you can understand the exhilaration that I'm emanating here. You can see it just by my visage. So let me go ahead and introduce Dr. Debra Freeman. Dr. Freeman completed her undergraduate studies in pre-medicine and theology at Davidson College, North Carolina, graduating magna cum laude. She returned to her hometown, Gainesville, Florida, to complete medical school and residency at the renowned University of Florida. Dr. Freeman was an American Cancer Society clinical fellow and a mentor of AOA and AED pre-medical societies. She is board certified, of course, in radiation oncology. Dr. Freeman has served as assistant professor in the University of Florida Department of Radiation Oncology, and she did so for 4 years, from 1991 to 1995, when she specialized in breast cancer and prostate seed implantations. She then served as residency co-director, faculty advisor for the College of Medicine, and medical director of radiation therapy of Gainesville. She relocated to Naples, Florida in 1995, joining Dr. Leonard Skushofi, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, Tchaikovsky, formerly of St. Joe's Hospital in Tampa at Naples Community Hospital. Then she became the medical director of radiation oncology in 1999 there, and also served as chairman of the Cancer Committee, member of the IRB, and physician liaison to the American College of Surgeons. And I could go on and on and on, which I have to do because there is just a plethora of experience here. In 2004, Dr. Freeman and Mary Ellen Masterson-McGary introduced CyberKnife radiosurgery in Naples. And if you know anything about CyberKnife, and if you don't, you will in this interview. This is an amazing accomplishment. And this was only the second such site in Florida. They developed the first community-based prostate radiosurgery program in the US and gained national recognition as leaders in the field, pioneers in the field. In 2008, Dr. Freeman and Ms. Masterson-McGary joined the Wellspring team at CyberKnife Centers of Tampa Bay and continue to develop and promote this new technology. Dr. Freeman has spoken, of course, at national and internationally renowned conferences on radiation oncology topics and has published several peer reviewed journal articles, most recently on prostate radiosurgery. So, allow me, after that grand introduction, allow me to welcome Dr. Debra Freeman. Dr. Freeman, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. EB.
Uh,
Too much introduction.
I don't know about that. There could be a lot more said, but we only have, 24 hours in a day here. So let's get to it. But again, I am indeed honored to have you here. As I mentioned even before, our reading your bio, that you're also my mentor, and you taught me about CyberKnife. You took me under your wings, and I think it was, as you know, we share so many things in common, spiritually devoted, etc. So when we met, as we say, it just really just clicked. Everything synchronized, and it was clearly ordained. So I think most of our audience, and even my colleagues in the medical field, everyone is always interested to know how we become interested in medicine as a whole, and then, of course, how do we choose our specialty. So for those listening now, and mostly after the broadcast, and then after the archive, just to give us a brief description of how you became interested in medicine.
Yeah, so I grew up in a medical family. My father is a neurosurgeon. My grandfather, OBGYN, uncle, psychiatrist. So a lot of physicians in the family, but I will say it was not an expectation. It was just more of a, I guess maybe a little biological persuasion to interested in sciences. But the truth is, when I was at Davidson College, matriculating at Davidson, and was started off on a pre-medicine pathway, but then got really interested in the study of theology. I was really soul searching and deciding which path would be best. And it struck me then, as it still does now, that medicine is the way to combine those skills, my interest in science, which I have always had, and then an interest in the spiritual side of things, and the sort of philosophical but spiritual side of things. And medicine was really ultimately, and I thought of different paths, but ultimately the way that I thought I could bring both of those interests to light and to try to help people.
Wow. That is so profound in so many ways, because medicine is actually, as I call it, an actual ministry. So there's a ministry of medicine, right? So
Yeah.
it certainly is in so many ways, and I know we bond on that level. And so it's interesting, because you mentioned that you had so many family members who were also practicing in the medical field. So it was more of a, I guess, a genetic proclivity, so to speak. It was in the amalgamation in genetic pool, so to speak, right?
Perhaps
Because you weren't
so.
really forced.
Only one of my siblings that went in that pathway. So I guess that if there is a
Uh,
genetic lean to it, perhaps only trickled down to me. But yes, I don't know about proclivity, but an interesting. I think what you said is exactly right. It's its own pathway, and its own, not religion, so to speak, but like you said, it's its own way of interacting with people. It's not just the science. There's a whole other component to medicine that I think is sometimes undervalued, but certainly not by all, as Dr. Eby knows.
Not by all, and that's why, and again, and that's why we bonded so well, because we saw that in each other, even without speaking. There is a certain way that we interact with our patients, the body language, the visage, the way that questions are posed, the way that we field, we present ourselves in the room and we read the atmosphere. And then, because we have that innate ability to do that, and it means so much to us, and we recognize the importance of that, then we interact with our patients accordingly, right? So it's, as I said, not cookie cutter. Yeah,
Oh, right.
absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely, absolutely. So then let's fast forward. So medicine and theology, and then you decided on medicine because you understood, of course, that it is indeed a ministry. And then how did you decide on oncology, though, and specifically radiation oncology? Because that is a radiation oncology is its own niche, right? In and of itself. So, how do you get from medicine and then progress to deciding on oncology and then radiation oncology?
Interesting. So I distinctly remember it was I went into medical school really not thinking oncology at all, but it was second year of medical school in pathology. And some of what became my professors in radiation oncology brought patients to our didactic sessions in pathology so that when we were learning about the disease processes, we could relate
Mhm,
them to an actual live patient, which in
mhm,
terms of it was, is fabulous. But there was a young woman who had been treated for Hodgkin's disease. It's a second year
mhm,
medical. I think I'd heard of it once, maybe barely knew what it was, but her story, the treatment that she received, and most specifically the guidance that she got from the radiation part of her treatment really
mhm,
impressed me, and that was really directionally changing for me. I found out more about oncology, and then as you go through the pathways in medical school, you sort of there's in traditional medicine, I'm not saying all medicine, but in traditional medicine and in managing cancer, that can be done. There could be a surgical pathway that will take you to cancer patients, a medical oncology pathway that will take you there, and that
mhm,
radiation oncology pathway. And of the three, I think just my mindset in terms of the broadness of types of patients that I could deal with, as well as the mathematical bent and the accuracy of it, precision of it, just sort of lent itself to my style. But the real interest was oncology. It was the tool just turned out to be radiation, but the real interest was oncology patients, really.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of the really just the patient interests, but then all the other factors that collate, right? That you use to practice oncology, they
Yes.
were perfect, and certainly that dictated your decision. Physics, math, etc. Just the way your brain works, right?
But the
Yeah,
broad,
that's
also an application to a broad array of cancer patients, which is somewhat unique to radiation oncology. It's not as unique to the other specialties. They have a little, anyway, the diversity of patients that we could see and take care of really appealed to me.
This is true. This is so true. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely true. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm already just beaming from what we've discussed so far, because I know our discussions are always extremely profound, and it always extracts more things that we probably have never discussed directly. But I think that the audience would be so happy to, just learn about from how we decide on the field of radiation oncology and what it entails, really. And
Yeah.
so we were practicing as a professor initially, which I think most of us, I did the same. We enter academia initially, and then you were the residency director as well, which I think is more of I would say for you, that's great because I know you as such a great mentor that I think that those residents were quite lucky to have you as a residency director. But tell me how that juxtapose that experience, and then of course entering into private practice. How did that transition occur?
So well, that's pretty easy. That's an easy answer, but it also explains my later interest in CyberKnife. And so I was practicing and very quite content at the University of Florida as a assistant professor on my way to doing professorship. But then I met my current spouse almost 30 years ago now, 28 years ago now. Met my spouse, and that he sort of dropped into my life and had yes, two young children that came along with that package. Three and one, two and well, 3 and 1 at the time. And so if I was going to continue just my, I guess my academic pursuits, I could have stayed in Gainesville. But I, oddly enough for me, listened to another side of my body and listened to my heart for a bit, and ended up marrying him and relocating to private practice. So, which was really interesting change and challenge in and of itself. So that's why you hear all these pathways that I got myself hooked up into in private practice, because I get restless easily. So I like to keep myself on the on the cutting edge. But saying that really is important, because fast forwarding a bit, but when we had the opportunity at the community level to a lot of different things came together to make that possible, but to introduce something like CyberKnife, which at the time was incredibly fresh in the market, very new, fairly unknown, that for me allowed me to kind of recall and remember how much I enjoyed new things and teaching about new things, and bringing that at the community level, and realizing that even at the community level, you can make a difference in terms of educating your colleagues, patients, and even, as it turns out, make a difference in terms of collecting data and publishing. You don't have to be at a university to do that.
Absolutely.
Up the ranks, it feels like you can. So that was a really, that kind of helped keep me in the game, so to speak. And not that I have any disregard for community practice, but the ability to continue to share knowledge is important to me.
And that's important to highlight, because the belief is that indeed that's the dogma. Pretty much, it's accepted that in academia, that is where if you need to publish, or perish, right, then you need to be in academia. But I think you were one of the academicians then who decided to brave the community practice and actually be the one to publish most on CyberKnife, especially particularly in the treatment of prostate cancer, which I think showed the rest of the radiation oncology community that indeed that can be done, and you can be the one. It did not first appear in academia. Right. You were what exactly? And so it shows that's an example. It set an example for everyone across the board. And the other that you mentioned, or you alluded to the fact that it is also important for the community practice, because there are many community practices that do not have the most advanced technology available to them. And so most patients therefore do not have access to that. And so they need to go to, they think that they need to then present to an academic center to be treated with that advanced technology. But to have that available in the community setting is also, I think, extremely important. And that was one of the other areas that I think you pioneered, especially in Florida, because it was not expected that would be the case, right? So,
yes.
Yeah. So
community real experience. It's not, to say that community experience is any less than the academic experience, I think, is undermining what we do as providers. So it's a real experience, just like academic care is real experience. Yes.
Absolutely. And I do believe that also the spectrum of patients that we treat in the community is very different and actually broader than academia in that sense. And so for that reason, that is why the research is real, right? Because we see those spectrum of patients, and patients who don't have access to care otherwise will have access to care there. So for so many reasons. Okay, so we introduced the subject of CyberKnife, which is really, Dr. Debra Freeman is the Nestor in the field of CyberKnife technology and in the treatment of many sites of cancer disease. But as we said, it was at the inception prostate cancer. So we are going to take a break because we want to dedicate much of this interview to the discussion of CyberKnife and its utilization, how it is employed to treat prostate cancer, but other sites as well, and what is so special about CyberKnife, because it is absolutely an incredible technology. So we will be right back. Stay with us. We will be discussing CyberKnife with the Nestor, the leader, one of our pioneers, Dr. Debra Freeman. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
And we're back with REVOXYLIFE with me, Dr. Evie, on Bold Brave TV. And as I stated, we have with us pioneer, leader in the field of CyberKnife technology, specifically in the treatment of prostate cancer, but literally in every cancer site. And so, again, welcome back, Dr. Debra Freeman.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. It is indeed my honor, for sure. Now, let us discuss, and I'm going to just let you take the lead here because, again, as I've said many times, you are the pioneer. So I want you to tell our audience why CyberKnife is so special and comparing to even IMRT, which is excellent in and of itself, used in just a general sense, linear accelerator. What is the difference between CyberKnife and IMRT? Let's not compare to 3D. And how do you use CyberKnife in your practice, prostate plus other sites, etc.? Yeah.
I think a little background history of the CyberKnife maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the CyberKnife tool was designed by a team of of people out at Stanford University, a team of people, meaning primarily a neurosurgeon, which is an interesting, as neurosurgeons, of course, don't treat prostate cancer, but a neurosurgeon, physicists, engineers, and designed the CyberKnife at its inception to be a tool to deliver very accurate and focused radiation, mimicking, and without getting too far down the pathway, another tool that was at that time in the late 90s, 2000s in our armamentarium called Gamma Knife. And Gamma Knife uses a radioactive source and has some restrictions on its applicability, but the gentleman who developed the CyberKnife, John Adler, great deal of respect for whom I have a great deal of respect, said if we can take the same tool or same concept that we use with a knife to treat very, very targeted lesions very specifically, but take it out of the realm of the Gamma Knife and make it more flexible, more able to other sites. And in his world, that was actually limited, in his mind, limited to spine, but take that same kind of precise technology. That was his goal in mind. So he and these developers created this CyberKnife, and when it was first introduced in the field, it was arguably just for things like brain tumors and then subsequently some spine lesions. But those of us who used the tool got familiar with what it could do, as we try to think outside the box a bit, right? Said, hey, if it can do this kind of accurate treatment for things like brain tumors, might it work for other kinds of tumors outside the head, lung, as an example, very widely used now, pancreatic cancer, and then kind of moving the way down, prostate cancer. And this is a true story. The first gentleman in the United States treated with the CyberKnife for his prostate cancer was in fact a neurosurgeon at Stanford, where the CyberKnife was created. So that gentleman himself developed prostate cancer and said, if you guys can treat brain tumors with this, can't you treat my prostate? And in fact, it was true. And so it developed in a very natural, logical way, but taking a tool that is very sophisticated in its ability to deliver radiation and parts is targeted, focused, and really unique in its robotic movement. Those are probably the uniquest features of the CyberKnife. Is they, in addition to having a targeted machine, the developer said, if we put this accelerator on a robotic head, does that not give us many more degrees of freedom? And the answer was yes. So it's a fabulous design.
Absolutely. And so when we just fast forwarding to, for example, the use of what we call, say, stereotactic radiation, which basically it means just what you said, like focus, more precise treatment with other machines, right? Then if we're able to treat precisely, target tumor, that means that we're able to protect normal adjacent structures as much as possible. And that's always the goal, right? To increase the actual therapeutic effect, right? And decrease the toxicity, and therefore increasing the therapeutic ratio, which is what the lingo we use in our field of radiation oncology. And so using those big stereotactic treatment allows us, therefore, to use those big doses to treat any site of disease, but also specifically initially radio-resistant cancers, so cancers that are not so sensitive to a smaller dose. Now, that then progressed to using image guidance along with stereotactic radiation therapy, because we need to be able to see the cancer, see the setup, and see the delivery, right, of the treatment to the actual tumor site. So not only using a big dose and protecting the other sites, but we need to see how the setup is so that we can ensure that everything is precisely or accurately aligned. And so that is where at that juncture, at a certain circa say 2010 2012 or so, that is where the field was at that juncture, before we all embraced then CyberKnife. So when most of the field was employing stereotactic radiation therapy, we were using what we would call then interfraction, right? Image guidance, meaning we're checking the setup between each fraction. What fascinated me, which you will explain, is the way that we can deliver radiation while monitoring the actual tumor site and adjusting accordingly during the actual delivery, not reviewing the setup, then delivering the treatment, right? Adjusting, then delivering the treatment, but also adding an extra protection, which is guidance during the actual delivery of treatment.
Intrafraction, yes, within the fraction.
Intrafraction. So inter versus intrafraction. And that, of course, allows for another level of accuracy, right?
Absolutely.
So exactly. So when we joined, or when I met you and you became my mentor, and we initiated this program together that we'll talk about, where we decided to join forces and then allow not just the community and others who were referred from different centers to be treated with CyberKnife, but also to allow for international patients to have the service as well. So when we met, we were basically discussing first, just how much we bonded on many levels spiritually, and how we practice, how we care for our patients. And we were working together at the CyberKnife Center in Tampa. And I then, I wouldn't say it was a matter of compelling. I conveyed to you my passion treating patients internationally. Originally, everyone knows now by now that I'm from Jamaica. And I was actually I was absolutely surprised, not because I didn't see, I really knew your heart, but I thought it was just so compelling on so many levels that you embraced that vision immediately. And that you were my mentor at that point, but then you became more of not just a mentor in terms of the field of radiation oncology, but someone that also saw that mission and that vision as important, and sacrificially so. And I just want to know what compelled you to decide to join that mission in that way, where you were completely immersed. I mean, you came on trips with me to Jamaica. I mean, so I don't think most people know that. So it wasn't just about referring patients and treating patients at our center, and allowing them to be treated with a certain budget that was specific for them because they couldn't afford the travel, etc. I just want you to just speak on what really was the motivation, the impetus for you.
And I really, it seems, boils down to being very simple. I view it as just a larger community, correct? You have the community that is in the area where you have the CyberKnife, the Tampa community. You can stretch that out to a bigger community, which might be the state of Florida, a bigger community. In terms of how I was viewing and implementing a CyberKnife, there's an education that started locally, and then it broadened to Florida, and then very quickly nationally, where I spent some time traveling about to centers in the United States, trying to educate people about what the CyberKnife could do patients. So to me, it was a very natural progression. It's just taking the next step to a larger community, but really important. And I hope now that COVID has maybe taken a back seat again, we can start it up again. Important to help our colleagues, whether they're United States, Jamaica, or in Grenada, or anywhere, know technologies that are available and help basically spread the word, not only to the providers, but also to the patients. Because if you know something exists, then you don't know that it's out there as a tool to use. I also that particular treatment of CyberKnife or radiosurgery lends itself very well to an international audience, because it is we don't spend maybe too much time, but it's not a prolonged or protracted course of treatment. Patients do not have to, if they're coming to the United States, don't have to spend 6, 7, 8 weeks. It's a fairly shortened course of treatment. So that also seemed to be just a logical progression. And my whole goal was to just try to educate and share this, what I thought was very unique technology, with the broader community beyond just the United States, and whether that down the road would translate to maybe an interest in getting that kind of tool, say in Jamaica or elsewhere in the Caribbean, or way to make it to facilitate those patients coming to the States. Either or, I think the idea is just to bring something that has shown value and purpose, but value and is useful as a tool, a little bit broader than our limited local or even regional scope. I think it behooves us to go a little bit, to reach a little beyond. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. And I know that you were the spokesperson traveling all over the country before I even met you to edify, educate the radiation oncology community and surgeons, etc., just everyone in the medical field about the use of CyberKnife and its role in radiosurgery, etc. And then, as you so astutely stated, the fractionation scheme, CyberKnife lends itself, which is what stereotactic radiation really is. It lends itself to a shorter course of treatment, which is more convenient for international patients because, of course, it's more expensive to spend 9 weeks. I mean, it's almost unheard of. That would not be possible had it not been for them being given the opportunity to stay in Tampa, be given the opportunity to be treated or offered this type of treatment. 5 treatments, which is usually what we'd offer, although you have offered 3 fractions before on some occasions. So patients usually stay for about a week or so, which makes it so much more, certainly less expensive. And less expensive is an understatement for sure. And so we treated so many patients from the Caribbean, mostly from Jamaica, but not all, and different sites. Prostate, we treated brain metastases. We treated patients who were originally from Jamaica, but were traveling from the UK. We captured so many patients, and what I want everyone to know also is that when we saw patients, most of the pathology, most of the pertinent clinical information, they were reviewed by us, and because of the convenience, we saw patients in consultation virtually Sometimes I was able to travel to Jamaica, to the Caribbean country, to see patients face to face. Then we would discuss the cases, and then we would see the patients together virtually. And then many times I was able to be there to treat the patients, but there were times when I was helping to either treat in Jamaica or develop, you know, other cancer centers, establish other cancer centers, and you were there treating patients who were referred from the Caribbean there in Tampa, and sent many, many updates, etc. And I gained so much respect for you. My countrymen certainly did. I had many, many reviews of how well they were treated, and how, of course, they then conveyed that information to the physicians who were in Jamaica, such that we were then invited, as I'm sure you recall, we
Right.
went to Jamaica and actually taught the urologist, because we wanted to implement SpaceOAR and fiducial marker placement, and they were so absolutely grateful to have, none other than Debra Freeman teach them how to actually, place SpaceOAR and fiducial markers, etc. So I just want to openly express, on behalf of not just me, but Jamaica, all the physicians, all the patients, all the patients' relatives that who expressed to me how grateful they were, and some are still doing so well. And to think that, knowing that they were not aware of this technology of CyberKnife, and they're from a third world country, and they were given this opportunity to be treated with this advanced technology, because someone said yes to the call, which is really, again, the divine intervention, the spirituality of it all, when you know your calling. Because I know that you when I asked you the question of why you felt impelled to do that, your answer was, well, it seemed like the natural progression. But it really takes more than just a natural progression. There is something that's an inner, that this is your soul and spirit, right? So this is from the beginning of your career, when you decided that this was a ministry, which is the reason that theology and medicine spoke to you, and that you couldn't separate the two. That is really what drove you, that combination, that amalgamation, right, drove you to say yes. It was natural to you, as you clearly stated. It's a natural progression to you, because because for the practical reasons. But then there is the soul reason, right? The soul, the inward man, the guide, the spirit, the spiritual GPS is actually what drove you, right? That
No,
is also a component as well. Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
no question. No question.
No question. I just want, since you didn't state it, I thought that I needed to do so, because I've always been impressed by your drive to do that. And I still am. And as you said, with COVID now, with now that, the ports are all open again, I know that in the future it is our calling to do the same. And we have so many plans written on paper, and in our temporal lobe, which we've discussed and stored there in our temporal
Yes.
lobe, that we will execute at some point in the future. And so, on that note, we will be taking a break, and we will be right back to hear more from, again, Dr. Debra Freeman, mentor, pioneer, and spiritually, divinely guided physician, radiation oncologist who strongly believes in the coupling of divinity and medicine. They go together. He is our guide and will always be. We will be right back on REVOXYLIFE with Dr. EB on Bold Brave TV.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Okay. And welcome back to REVOXYLIFE with Dr. EB on Bold Brave TV. And again, we have our exciting guest, well accomplished CyberKnife leader, pioneer, radiation oncologist, Dr. Debra Freeman with us. And again, it's such an honor, my mentor, so many things, divinely ordained meeting. And we have been in contact ever since, working together. In fact, just a little bit of tidbit, since you mentioned family, I probably should as well. Dr. Freeman actually, Dr. Freeman, I think actually mentored my daughter. So my daughter, who is now actually a college student, Dr. Freeman offered to mentor my daughter, and she rotated with Dr. Freeman at CyberKnife Center in Tampa, and she totally enjoyed the experience. And when she the first day actually, she came home and she said, "I do see why you really admire Dr. Freeman. I can see you guys are very similar. You have a lot in common." And so again, thank you. She's completely impressed by you. So in our last segment, I would like you to let the audience know exactly where you are. I know you're at CyberKnife Center of Tampa Bay, but just give us a brief description of the sites that you treat. I know you treat literally every site, but let's give us a brief description of maybe the more common sites that you treat there, and the process of consultation, etc., and also where they would obtain their imaging studies, and if there are any expansions taking place in the CyberKnife technology as it relates to your center, and within the ambits of Tampa Bay?
Yeah, so I would say any listener out there that may have an interest in, for themselves, for a family member, for a loved one, there is a fairly broad teaching tool from the company that makes this CyberKnife called Accuray, Accray, and they have a website that can help direct you to the various sites that can be treated. But I tell a lot of patients who call, I would rather you ask if you have a diagnosis of a malignancy or even a non-malignancy, but a tumor of some type. I would rather take a question and ask, is what you have or a loved one has treatable with CyberKnife, than just limit it to what might be said on a website, because we're always able to try to think outside the box and treat conditions as they come up if it's appropriate. So I would say don't limit your knowledge to web searches, but don't hesitate to call. And with that note, I am currently affiliated with CyberKnife Center of Tampa Bay. Our program is also affiliated with Tampa General Hospital, University of South Florida medical program, and their Cancer Institute. So any one that might have an interest or have a question as whether or not they or their loved one might be a candidate for a CyberKnife, do not hesitate to reach out. We all have, there's the CyberKnife Center of Tampa Bay website. There's a TGH Cancer, Tampa General Hospital Cancer Institute website. So those are all contact ways, and I'm more than happy to address a question. I never ever mind an individual themselves calling and making an inquiry. It doesn't have to be through their doctor. It doesn't have to be, through their referring physician. It can be just they call and say, hi, I have this situation. Am I possibly eligible for this CyberKnife? And I will say, because I have been privileged to be doing this for a while, I happen to know many of the my colleagues, mine and Dr. EB's colleagues around the United States and even in Europe that are using the tool. And so I wouldn't want anyone to feel like they would have to come to Tampa. I would be able to help give them information on whether they might be a candidate, but then direct them to the appropriate caregiver if something is closer in their area. So I said, main thing is don't hesitate to reach out if this conversation spurs a question or a thought, reach out.
Yes, that's definitely correct. I can attest to that because I know that when I had patients who were not necessarily residing in the Caribbean, that you were able to contact your colleagues in different countries, and then the patient was able to then receive their follow-up care there, even though they were treated by you. And we both know we cannot say names, etc. But yes, so I can attest to that. And that's mostly because as we all know, you have been the CyberKnife guru for so long, decades at this juncture, that you have amassed a number of colleagues in different areas of the world, such that, and you're so well respected that you can just make a call and that's all that's necessary. But even if a patient is not in the US, but is interested in knowing more about CyberKnife and they do not know who to contact, they can always contact you, because I've seen you literally take at least, and I would say, I now obviously I don't want your phone to be inaccessible, but I've seen you take at least 30 minutes at least explaining to new patients who have not even been seen at our center how we employ CyberKnife and if they are a candidate or not. And even at the end of that discussion, if they are unsure, you actually offer them time, face-to-face time, either via telemedicine or otherwise to further discuss. And also, what is very important to note is that it's not just about radiation oncologists or centers with CyberKnife technology, if they harbor such expertise, but also other colleagues. So neurosurgeons, radiologists, neuroradiologists, GI surgeons, cardiothoracic surgeons, medical oncologists. Dr. Freeman is in contact with all of the specialties, and not just in Florida. But I know this for a fact because when we are treating any site of disease with CyberKnife, Dr. Freeman will literally either go to that center, the neurosurgeon center, and review the MRI of the brain or the spine and contour accordingly. That discussion is a multidisciplinary discussion. Although you're using CyberKnife, which is radiation, to treat the patient, Dr. Freeman will sit with that particular specialist and discuss the surgery or the MRI from the neuroradiologist standpoint to ensure that everything is understood, the pathology, the extent of disease, what we cannot see with our naked eye, but what we think should be encompassed by the radiation field, so that everything is completely understood in such a way that when the plan is composed, when the treatment plan is therefore instituted, we know that the treatment is going to be accurately delivered without a doubt. All the T's are crossed, as we say back home, and all the I's are dotted. So that is something that I have witnessed working with you, Dr. Freeman, as well. So I just want to be sure that our audience knows that too, that you will reach out to their physicians as well. It's not, once they're with you, you are in connection with the referring physicians and the radiologists, and everything is very, very punctilious, meticulous, very carefully crafted to and tailored to the actual site of disease and the patient.
And the patient, yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. Well, any parting words, Dr. Freeman, before you go?
Just very grateful to have our paths crossed when they did, and then I'm obviously hopeful now that, like, in the COVID pandemic, maybe a little behind us, that we can continue our international efforts. Very enjoyable and I think meaningful.
Was it always has been, and I'm sure we'll have the chance to do that again. And it's not just the Caribbean. I mean, we can branch out to other countries as well, as you so clearly stated. And again, it is Dr. Debra Freeman, CyberKnife Center of Tampa Bay, and she can be reached if you type her name in on the internet. It's as easy as not just 1, 2, 3. It's as easy as one. And just give her a call, and that's it. So, guys, again, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you, my mentor, Dr. Debra Freeman. Again, pioneer, leader in the field of CyberKnife technology, spokesman, been all over the world and the country. And if you ever need to be treated with such great technology and with such care, not just about the medicine, as you know, I strongly believe in collating the body, mind, and soul and spirit, taking care of the whole patient, then Dr. Debra Freeman, CyberKnife technology, that is indeed the path you should take. And again, it's been another great Saturday with REVOXYLIFE. with Dr. Evie on Bold Brave TV. Thank you for watching. I will see you again in 2 weeks with another exciting guest. Thank you.
This has been REVOXYLIFE with host Dr. E.B. Join the conversation each week as ultimately Dr. Sophia Edwards-Bennett seeks to shift the perspectives and paradigm regarding cancer treatment, as well as educate the world on its matrices of adversities, right here, Saturday at 2 p.m. on the Bold Brave TV network.